Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are moving on to the next episode in my category breakdown series, and in today's video we are taking a look at Best Adapted Screenplay. Now if you're new to the channel, or new to this series in general, this video is going to be in a playlist with all of the other episodes so far this award season, so you can go back and watch all of those. I think we've only got a couple videos left, so pretty much every single category is going to be in there. Basically all this series is just for the last 3 years. I've taken a look at every single individual category at the upcoming Academy Awards, and we just break the category down. We take a look at each film that's nominated in that specific category, and then we look at the individual artists that are nominated alongside the film. So in this category, obviously it's going to be the screenwriters that are nominated alongside. We talk about the film a little bit, talk about previous award history, Oscar nomination history for all these individuals, and then at the end of each section I give you my personal ranking, 1 through 5, of kind of how I prefer them or how I would vote for them in the category, and then I'll give you my prediction for how likely it is that I think they win the Academy Award this Sunday, March 15th. And without further ado, let's take a look at the nominees.
Begonia, screenplay by Will Tracy.
This is Will Tracy's first Oscar nomination. Begonia was nominated for Best Screenplay at the Writers Guild of America, the BAFTAs, and the Critics' Choice Awards. Now, I think what Begonia benefits from, I think, the most in terms of this category, kind of like, I didn't mention it in the other video, the original screenplay video, it was just an accident, kind of has the same thing. The thing that these two films kind of have going for it is the mystery aspect to their film. Mysteries, I feel like, is a really good, like, if you're able to build a compelling mystery, then you've, like, that in and of itself is just a great screenplay feat. It's a great feat of being able to pull that off, to be able to put that into writing, and to be able to get a mystery essentially to work. Because I think any film that kind of has mystery or suspense kind of built into it, the film can kind of fall really flat if the writing isn't great, if you're not really crafting this story in a way that compels the audience to be interested from start to finish. It kind of falls flat, and then the film falls flat, and then you're obviously not in this category. So I think if you're able to nail kind of the mystery or suspense part of your film, of your screenplay, then I think that is a big benefit. And that's what Begonia is, really, when it comes down to it, is it's kind of a drama, mystery, suspense, thriller, kind of like everything all rolled into one, but really kind of the mystery, or the I guess the thriller aspect of this is the entire understanding that this film is about these two guys that kidnap Emma Stone. They kidnap this CEO of this very big company under the impression that she's an alien. Then you get everything that happens based on, is she an alien, is she not an alien, kind of as the duration of this film goes. And again, it's one of those that I think being able to build this mystery or suspense, because again, essentially there's only really two outcomes for what the general question that a lot of audience members are going to have while watching this. And so it almost feels like, depending on when you only have so many options of like where the story or what the reveal could be at the end of the film, it feels like only so many ways you can go, unless you have a great screenplay that, again, I've said this before in one of the previous videos, I don't remember, might have been Actress video, but I've said it before when talking about Begonia, where to me, when I was watching the film, it didn't matter whether she was an alien or not. Like, that the mystery itself was, like, so important, and then all of a sudden, no matter what the answer was, I was going to be satisfied, I was going to have a good time with the film, because the film just carried me on a journey that was just, again, captivating, and had me kind of hooked the entire time. And that truly is just kind of the to the credit of the screenplay, of being able to, again, to retain kind of that audience suspense and mystery and care. Like, you care when you're watching this film about how it's all playing out. And I think, you know, kind of when you get to the end, again, no spoilers here, but when you get to the end, I think some people maybe it kind of loses them a little bit when you get to the end. For me, it worked very well for me. I think it's worked well for a lot of people, and I think that's the reason the screenplay that carried this film to that conclusion, that's what gets it here into the Best Adapted Screenplay category. For my personal rank, I'm putting Begonia in third, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in third.
Frankenstein, written for the screen by Guillermo del Toro.
This is Guillermo del Toro's 8th Oscar nomination. He won for Best Director and Best Picture in 2018 for The Shape of Water, and for Best Animated Feature Film in 2023 for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. He was also nominated this year for producing Frankenstein, in 2022 for producing Nightmare Alley, in 2018 for writing The Shape of Water, and in 2007 for writing Pan's Labyrinth. Frankenstein was nominated for Best Screenplay at the Writers Guild of America and the Critics' Choice Awards. Now, occasionally, I don't want to say this is every year, but occasionally it feels like maybe that there's a film that gets into a category, maybe a screenplay category, just kind of makes sense for one of those, because obviously you got to come up with 10 screenplay films. Every now and then it kind of feels like maybe there's a Best Picture film that kind of just gets in there because it's the Best Picture film and it makes sense to put it in the category. And there's parts of this film of Frankenstein where that feels the case to me, where it feels like there's a lot that's great about Frankenstein. I don't know necessarily if it was ever the screenplay was like at the forefront of my mind of being like, this is what's making this film amazing right now. It's another one of those films, like I kind of talked about yesterday, or in the other video, the original screenplay video, where I was talking about Marty Supreme, where it feels like there's maybe a whole lot of other things that are like the priority to me of like all the text and stuff, and that's exactly what Frankenstein is. For me, I look at Frankenstein and I think of it as the costumes, the production design, the makeup, the cinematography, like everything that is kind of like the technical stuff behind the camera. When you get into the acting outside of like Jacob Elordi, like there isn't a whole lot of the acting, like, you know, Oscar Isaac was never really in this race, Mia Goth was never in supporting actress, like, Jacob Elordi is kind of the one that is kind of there in the acting category, and then, you know, it gets into picture based off of the strength of the text, and then it kind of feels like maybe it just kind of got thrown the bone with the screenplay. But then I think the key part, or the pivotal part that I just mentioned, is Jacob Elordi. His character specifically, not only just, I mean, because he is, you know, essentially kind of the titular character, Frankenstein's monster, the creature of the film, he is, in a sense, the heart of this film. That I think if the screenplay was weaker, he would have been Frankenstein's monster. He would have been what you kind of picture him to be. It would have been maybe a little cliched or a little just kind of like unoriginal, and it would have just been, you know, just a whatever film, and then you would have kind of moved on and we would have forgotten about Frankenstein. But I think the way his character specifically is so beautifully written, the way that he interacts with other people, the way he interacts with Mia Goth, the way he interacts with the family that he kind of watches over for a period, you know, the way that he's interacting with these different people, the human connection that he is trying to make is just really emotional, and I think is what kind of propels the film for me, where there's a lot of the film where I'm just kind of like, okay, cool, it's whatever. But then you get to this moment and you're like, oh no, there is a whole lot of heart, and like the screenplay is very beautiful, and it is, you know, I'm glad it got the nomination. It's worthy of that nomination when you kind of get into everything just kind of revolving around essentially the heart of the film. And really, again, I've said this before, I still haven't gone back and watched any kind of like previous Frankenstein films, so this is kind of the only reference I really have for the character. So again, I don't know if this is something that was kind of done a little bit better here than it has been in other tellings of the character. But for me, just that emotion, the final act, I was caught off guard by how much I was kind of moved by the conversation. Again, not wanting to spoil anything about the end, but there's a conversation between Jacob Elordi and Oscar Isaac, between Frankenstein and his creation, and the conversation that they have is just kind of this beautiful and emotional moment to me that just kind of, again, soars and kind of excels through this screenplay that is, for the longest time, something that wasn't the most impressive part of the film, but for this one specific moment, it became the highlight. Because in this moment, you know, I guess you're still looking at the costumes and the makeup or whatever, but, you know, the scores, and maybe there's a little light score still kind of playing, but you're not getting this great view of the production design. The cinematography is just kind of what it is, establishing the shot. Like, everything kind of takes a backseat to the screenplay at essentially the most pivotal moment of the scene. And so for me, it's a screenplay, like I've been saying, it's not something that was completely won me over until it did in the end, and, you know, it's just beautiful in those moments, and I'm glad it got the nomination. For my personal rank, I'm putting Frankenstein in 4th, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 5th.
Hamnet, screenplay by Chloe Zhao and Maggie O'Farrell.
This is Chloe Zhao's 6th Oscar nomination. She won in 2021 for producing and directing Nomadland. She was also nominated in 2021 for writing and editing Nomadland, as well as this year for directing Hamnet. This is Maggie O'Farrell's first Oscar nomination. Hamnet was nominated for Best Screenplay at the Writers Guild of America, the BAFTAs, the Critics' Choice Award, and the Golden Globe Awards. Now, if you watched the original screenplay video and you saw where I put Sentimental Value on my list, I think you maybe got a good impression of where I might be putting Hamnet, because these two films, again, I feel like are very similar to me, where they are so screenplay-heavy films. These are films that the entirety of the film, essentially for the most part, is just kind of carried out through these conversations, through these beautiful moments that these characters share, these reflective moments that they have. That is essentially where this, you know, where this film excels, is just in the beauty of these conversations. The scene at the beginning of the film, kind of in the opening act of during during Jesse Buckley and Paul Mescal, during their characters, Shakespeare and Agnes, during their courtship, the conversation and the story that they have where Hamnet is telling the story, and it's just so captivating, the way that obviously this isn't like an original story that, Chloe Zhao came up or Maggie O'Farrell came up and wrote into the film, but still the way that they deliver this story, have Paul Mescal delivering it, have Jesse Buckley reacting to this scene, like, it's just beautiful. Then as the film kind of goes on, especially again for the first act or so, there are so many moments of just kind of beauty, and you see this family, you see them together and happy, and it feels like for a moment, like you're watching this and you just got a big smile on your face, and it feels like this is going to just stay beautiful, this is going to be this nice, lovely film. But if you know anything about the film going in, or if you know anything about, Hamlet that's inspired by Hamnet, you understand, like, okay, things obviously are going to take a tragic turn. It's going to become a tragedy, this story. And so you're watching, and the film does an amazing job, I think, of setting you up with the beauty and the tender and the touching moments, knowing that you're going to have your heart broken, and you know that the scene, the film itself is just going to become maybe not completely hard to watch, but it's going to become painful and it's going to become emotional, and the film really just kind of excels at those both of those emotions. The other thing Hamnet has going for it that the other films don't in the category, except for, I guess, technically Frankenstein a little bit, and then the film at the bottom, we'll kind of briefly touch on that a little bit too when we talk about that film. But there are these period pieces that are set back in, the old times, and so the language is different, and so it's a screenplay where you're having these conversations, but you're having to put in the Shakespearean, language and the words that they use, the verbiage. It's all just an additional layer, I think, of what's making the screenplay great, is because you could have a bad screenplay for the film obviously wouldn't have had the care put into the language, into the verbiage, into the terminology that they're using in this time, but obviously you've got a pair here in Chloe Zhao and Maggie O'Farrell that they clearly do care, and they put all of that heart, put all of that energy into the screenplay. And again, Hamnet, it's just a beautiful film that doesn't have like this amazing action. It's not like I've talked about with Begonia. There's no mystery here. There's no very little comedy. There's a couple chuckle moments here and there, but it's not intending. This film's not intending to be a comedy at all. What this is intending to be a family drama, and the way to really make a family drama work is by having an amazing screenplay, which Hamnet does. For my personal rank, I'm putting Hamnet in first, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in second.
One Battle After Another, written by Paul Thomas Anderson.
This is Paul Thomas Anderson's 14th Oscar nomination, and he is still looking for his first win. He is also nominated this year for producing and directing One Battle After Another, in 2022 for producing, directing, and writing Licorice Pizza, in 2018 for producing and directing Phantom Thread, in 2015 for writing Inherent Vice, in 2008 for producing, directing, and writing There Will Be Blood, in 2000 for writing Magnolia, and in 1998 for writing Boogie Nights. One Battle After Another won Best Screenplay at the Writers Guild of America, the BAFTAs, the Critics' Choice Awards, and the Golden Globe Awards. Now, one thing I'm noticing this year, and I haven't really dove all the way into it, but just based off of, my category breakdown series, I feel like I'm noticing that there's a consensus kind of brewing in so many categories. And it's one of those that for me, I'm kind of looking at it and I'm thinking, like, there can't be this big of a consensus, like, in a year that feels like some crazy stuff could happen. Like, it feels like we're all getting too comfortable with, like, the consensus. So there's some categories where I'm thinking, like, okay, maybe what's the long shot, or where do I call my shot, my no guts, no glory pick, where do I kind of differ? This is one of those categories you cannot differ from. You have to, in your predictions, you are sticking with One Battle After Another. It is sweeping everything. It is one of the best screenplays of the year, and it's like a no doubt obvious, like, best screenplay. The thing for me that I think is what's so impressive about the screenplay is kind of, this is like what I was talking about in the original screenplay with Sinners. I think this is, and it's, fair that those are the two films that are kind of dominating these categories, but I think they're similar in the sense that they are these films with big ensembles, this big cast. They both have, these newcomers, and Chase Infinity here, Miles Caton, Sinners, these newcomer actors that come in and they have such a big role in the film, and their characters are written so well to where this newcomer can come in and just charm you and win you over and kind of become the star, essentially, of their films. But they really just have the big cast where everyone kind of comes in, and this film may be a little bit more, with with Sinners, I was kind of saying it's really cool how so much of the ensemble just interacts with like each other. In One Battle After Another, it is a little bit closer to everyone kind of interacting with Leo. Like, it's a lot of the relationships are through Leo, so, you know, you're not seeing a whole lot of, I guess, outside of like Regina Hall and Chase Infinity, and then Chase Infinity. So I guess maybe that's the best way to put it. Everyone either interacts with Leo or Chase Infinity. Like, that's your connection point to the story, because that's what this story is. It's the father-daughter story. And so everyone kind of interacts with those, but like every character, when they are interacting with those two characters, it is very seamless. It's very, like, you believe, even if you identify the actors, you still really believe that these are real people, this is a real situation, you understand the gravity of what's going on. The screenplay is able to really kind of put you into that headspace, so you are fully aware of the circumstance. You're fully aware that this is potentially, you know, a life and death scenario for multiple people going on in this film, and so you understand the film does an excellent job of kind of building up the tension to getting to this kind of the second act, where everything kind of then spirals for a moment. Like, it does a great job of building you to that point. You feel the gravity, you feel the heft of what is going on, and you feel, again, just the drama. This is another one that has the suspense, has, you know, kind of the, not really, not too much of a mystery, more so I would say like the thrill and suspense of this is really what is building up, and that's through, I mean, through some other things like the performances and the direction and stuff, but really through the screenplay is where that comes through. So, One Battle After Another, it's been sweeping, it's been winning everything. And on one hand, you can say, like, okay, well, that makes sense because it's the Best Picture frontrunner, so obviously it's going to win a couple of, like, some other big prizes. Like, that just seems like that's what happens. But the reason that happens is because it's good. You're not going to get a Best Picture winner that's winning screenplay if it has a bad screenplay. Like, the screenplay obviously is what's kind of elevating the film to that Best Picture level. That's what One Battle After Another does here. It is a beautiful screenplay, and it's going to make for a great winner on Sunday. For my personal rank, I'm putting One Battle After Another in second, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in first.
And Train Dreams, screenplay by Clint Bentley and Greg Quidar.
This is the second Oscar nomination for both Clint Bentley and Greg Quidar. They were nominated together in 2025 for writing Sing Sing. Train Dreams was nominated for Best Screenplay at the Writers Guild of America and the Critics' Choice Awards. It's kind of fascinating to me, and again, I don't know if this is like a real thing or if it's just something I'm putting in there and like I'm making more of this than there really is, but it's interesting to me in the adapted screenplay category and the original screenplay category, like how close the two categories kind of like correlate in a sense, where like I just was comparing One Battle After Another to Sinners, and now I'm comparing Train Dreams, I think, to like Blue Moon is the film that I think it feels very similar to Blue Moon in the original screenplay category, because these are both these films that are character studies, like in a sense, where it's, you kind of have your main character and he, although it's actually kind of funny now that I'm thinking this through a little bit more, it's funny to make that comparison because you've got Blue Moon where like the character doesn't shut up and is constantly talking the entire time, and then you've got this where it's the opposite, where you've got Joel Edgerton and you've got a very kind of more subdued and very quiet and introspective kind of performance. But I think where I'm talking about the similarity between the two films is they don't work, these character performances don't work without the amazing screenplay that is going hand in hand with those performances. Now, again, obviously the difference is in Blue Moon, the screenplay is like keeping Ethan Hawke talking a million miles an hour. In this, I think it's more so a screenplay that is, again, like I was just saying, like reserved, but it's keeping Joel Edgerton's character fascinating and keeping him the focus of the film, even when he isn't this like super talkative and most outgoing person. Like, you understand like who he is as a person through the screenplay, through kind of the beautiful and touching moments that kind of happen in the film, some of the tragic moments that happen. Like, it's all building his character where he doesn't have to be the one that is just like telling you what his character is, what he stands for, like what he believes. Like, it's very quiet and reserved performance that I think is just kind of beautiful, and it's fun to kind of appreciate that in the screenplay category, because it's one of the highlights of the film that outside of like the cinematography, obviously the cinematography is amazing, but outside of the cinematography, like, it wasn't going to get director. That's like the only other category I could think of where you would like award this film for that beautiful and reserved and kind of just, and I guess technically the original score or the original song, because the song is really kind of the same kind of vibe, the same atmosphere of a very kind of peaceful moment. But that's really what the screenplay does, is it really kind of just puts this entire film in an era or a setting that, like, I don't really care too much about, like, this particular era of, like, U.S. history, like where it's just like it's not super riveting, and the film itself isn't like trying to be this like wall-to-wall action, blockbuster film. It understands that we're doing a character study here. We're doing a introspective piece, looking at this man, looking at his relationships, looking at how different events kind of form and shape him through this specific era, kind of U.S. history. And in a way, that's what becomes fascinating. You become kind of hooked reading into this or watching this character's story, and that's really, again, a highlight from the screenplay of really kind of propelling this from being a film that frankly, could have been really boring, but instead becomes a very emotional film, and one that, kind of had me a little choked up at the end. I know one of my buddies was absolutely lost it at the end of this film. So it's a screenplay that puts you through so many emotions and kind of brings you to this real emotional climax of the film. It's just a beautiful screenplay, and I'm glad that For Turing Dreams, a film that was able to kind of hang in there and still get, a Best Picture nomination, I'm glad it was able to kind of get this as well as a couple other Oscar nominations, because it really does deserve that recognition at the Oscars. For my personal rank, I'm putting Train Dreams in 5th, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 4th. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of this category. What film are you rooting for? Who are you predicting to win? Let me know all of that down below. And if you'd like to like this video and then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes in this series or any of the other series that I have going on my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.